You might see yourself in Lucifer's story, and that's shocking. What if everything you thought you knew about Lucifer was wrong? You've heard the story, Lucifer, the fallen angel, the prince of darkness. But what if I told you, this isn't just his story? It's ours. Welcome to Grace Bible Stories. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching this, I believe it's for a reason. Today, we're diving into the rise and fall of Lucifer, but not just to understand him, to understand ourselves. Because his downfall wasn't just about rebellion. It was about pride, control, the hunger for more. And if we're honest, isn't that something we all wrestle with? Think about it. Have you ever felt like you deserved more? Like you worked too hard to stay in the same place? That quiet thought, I should be in charge, it's small at first, but what if it's more dangerous than you realize? By the end of this video, you might just see Lucifer's story, and your own, in a completely new light. But before we start, if you love deep, thought-provoking stories that challenge the way you think, hit that subscribe button and help us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end, because there's something in this story that could change the way you see yourself forever. Let's begin. Section 1. The Rise of Lucifer, gifted, powerful, but restless. Have you ever felt like you were meant for something greater? Like no matter how much you achieved, there was always something missing. Lucifer wasn't always the enemy of God. He was once the most radiant, the most powerful, the most intelligent of all the angels. Ezekiel 28 verses 12 to 14 describes him as the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Imagine that for a moment, perfection. He stood in the presence of God, clothed in celestial light, his voice leading heaven's worship, his form dazzling beyond comprehension. If there was ever a being created to inspire awe, it was him. And yet, something stirred inside. A whisper. A longing. Not for love, he had that. Not for beauty, he was unmatched. But for more. More recognition. More authority. More control. At first, it was nothing more than a passing thought, a fleeting feeling. But whispers have a way of growing louder. Have you ever had a thought like that? A quiet voice in the back of your mind saying, you deserve more. You've earned it. Why should they have it and not you? That's how it starts, doesn't it? Not with rebellion. Not with defiance. But with a single question, why not me? And the moment you start entertaining that thought, something changes. What once felt like a gift starts to feel like a right. Gratitude fades. Comparison creeps in. And suddenly, what you have, no matter how glorious, doesn't feel like enough anymore. Lucifer had everything. But he wanted more. And that was the beginning of his downfall. And if you think that's dangerous, just wait until you see what happens next. Section 2. The Seed of Pride, when the first thought appears. Have you ever had a thought that seemed small at first, but over time, it changed everything? Lucifer's downfall didn't start with an action. It started with a whisper in his mind. A quiet, lingering question, why should I serve when I could rule? At first, it was just a thought. It didn't seem dangerous. But the thing about thoughts is, they don't just stay in your mind. They shape the way you see the world. They change the way you see yourself. And the more you entertain them, the more real they become. Lucifer started seeing himself differently. He wasn't just another angel. He was special, unique, deserving. Why should he remain beneath anyone? Why should he bow when he was clearly meant to stand above? And so, the thought grew. It wrapped around his mind like a vine, taking root, twisting itself into his identity. I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will make myself like the Most High. Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 15. 5 simple statements. 5 I will declarations. Each one a step further away from truth and closer to destruction. And isn't that how it happens? Not with open rebellion, but with small shifts in perspective. With justifications. I deserve this. I know better. I don't need to listen. Have you ever caught yourself thinking like that? Maybe you've worked hard for something and felt like others didn't recognize your value. Maybe you've looked at someone in a position of power and thought, I could do it better. It doesn't feel like pride at first. It feels like confidence. Like ambition. But unchecked pride never stops growing until one day you look back and realize you're no longer the person you used to be. That's what happened to Lucifer. His thought became a belief. His belief became a conviction. And his conviction, it led to rebellion. And once that line was crossed, there was no turning back. Section 3. The rebellion when pride becomes action. Have you ever convinced yourself you were right, so right that nothing else mattered? Lucifer's pride had been growing, taking root deep within him. But now, it wasn't just a thought. It was a belief. And beliefs? They demand action. He looked around heaven and saw angels who admired him, who followed his every word. And for the first time, he wondered, what if they followed me, not God? At first, it was subtle. A conversation here. A suggestion there. He planted doubt, wrapped in wisdom. Why should we always serve? Why shouldn't we have a say? Why should only one rule? And some listened. That's how rebellion starts, isn't it? Not with war, but with whispers. With small justifications. With enough people nodding their heads, thinking, maybe he's right. And then came the moment. A line was drawn. Heaven trembled. The skies darkened. Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. Revelation 12 verses 7 to 9. But Lucifer had underestimated his opponent. He thought he could challenge the throne of God. He thought he was strong enough. But pride is blind. One moment, he was rising in defiance. The next, he was falling. Because that's the thing about pride. It convinces you you're invincible. But in the end, it always leads to a fall. And Lucifer's fall would change everything. Comment below, have you ever let pride push you too far? Let's talk. And if this story is hitting home, subscribe now, because we're only getting started. Section 4, the fall, the moment reality hits. Have you ever lost something and thought, how did I not see this coming? One moment, Lucifer was rising in rebellion, convinced he was unstoppable. The next, he was falling. I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Luke 10 verse 18. Can you imagine that? The weightless moment before impact. The realization that everything you fought for is gone. Lucifer, once the most radiant being in heaven, now plummeting into darkness. The angels who once followed him, silent. The throne he thought he could take, lost forever. He had reached for ultimate power, but instead, he was powerless. And isn't that how it happens? Pride convinces us we're in control until the moment we realize we never were. Maybe you felt it too. A time when you ignored the warnings. When you pushed too far, too fast. And then, suddenly, everything came crashing down. A career. A relationship. A reputation. And the worst part? It's not just losing everything. It's the silence after the fall. Because after the fall, you have to face the truth. Lucifer had a choice. He could have humbled himself, repented, and sought redemption. But instead, he let his bitterness consume him. And that choice? That was his real downfall. And what he did next made everything worse. Comment below, have you ever ignored the warning signs, only to regret it later? Let's talk. And if this story is making you think, hit subscribe, because the next part? It's the most important one yet. Section 5. Life after the fall, choosing bitterness or redemption. What happens after the fall? When the dust settles, when the noise fades, when you're left alone with nothing but your own regrets, what do? Lucifer had a choice. He could have humbled himself. He could have accepted reality, learned from it, and changed. But instead, he let his pain turn into rage. And rage? It doesn't just burn, it consumes. Instead of seeking redemption, he sought revenge. If he couldn't rule in heaven, he would rule in darkness. If he couldn't have the throne, he would destroy everything in its path. Genesis 3 verses 1-5, he deceived Eve, pulling humanity into the same rebellion he had chosen. Because that's what pride does. It refuses to let go. It refuses to heal. It would rather tear everything apart than admit defeat. And isn't that the same battle we face? When we fail, we have two choices: take responsibility, or blame and destroy. You've seen it before, someone who refuses to admit they were wrong, someone who lashes out, someone who isolates themselves, convinced the world is against them. Maybe you've been there too. And here's the truth, the fall isn't what defines you. It's what you do next that matters. Lucifer chose bitterness. But you still have a choice. Comment below, what's one thing you've learned from this part of the story? Let's talk. And if you're ready for the most important part, hit subscribe, because the next part? It could change everything. Section 6. The redemption, the choice we all must make. What if your worst mistake wasn't the end of your story? Lucifer fell. But what made his fall truly tragic wasn't just that he lost everything, it was that he never turned back. He had a chance to humble himself, to seek redemption, to start again. But instead, he clung to his pride, and it destroyed him. But you still have a choice. We've all made mistakes. We've all let pride get the best of us. Maybe you've pushed people away. Maybe you've ignored the warnings. Maybe you've lost something important because you couldn't admit you were wrong. But your story isn't over. James 4 verse 6 says, God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. And that's the key, humility. The ability to say, I was wrong. The courage to change. The strength to rebuild. Lucifer's story is a warning. But it's also a mirror. Because every day, we are faced with the same choice, to let pride consume us, or to rise again. So, what will you choose? Drop a comment below. I choose wisdom over pride. Let's talk. And if this message spoke to you, hit subscribe, because next time, we're going even deeper. Lucifer's story ends here, but yours doesn't. So here we are. We've walked through the rise, the pride, the rebellion, and the fall of Lucifer. But the real question isn't about him, it's about us. Because pride, ambition, the hunger for more, these aren't just his struggles. They're human struggles. They creep in silently, convincing us that we deserve more, that we know better. But as we've seen, pride never stops at a thought, it demands action. And action has consequences. But here's the good news, you still have a choice. Lucifer never turned back. He let his pride harden into bitterness. But you can rise again. Maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe you've fallen. But your story isn't over. It's never too late to choose wisdom over pride. If this story spoke to you, if something in it made you stop and think, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video. Someone out there might need to hear this today. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe to Grace Bible Stories so we can keep exploring these powerful stories together. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your biggest takeaway from this story? Drop a comment below, or simply type, "I choose wisdom over pride." Let's talk. Because next time, we're diving even deeper. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. See you soon.